Where can I put my notes so I can
know.
see them?
Well, same here, because I hand wrote my notes this
You hand
time.
wrote this time. I find it easier when I'm watching.
You know, that's so interesting. It was easier this time to just stop because I was watching it 2 days after. So I could stop Hulu and write my thoughts down. But I should have done it on the computer, but I just didn't trust myself. And I did have a piece of paper with me. And then I needed to end up getting more paper because I took notes.
Right. Yeah, you're going to hear the swish of the paper as I turn it over.
Same. Same. It is what it is. It is what it is. But
it is what it is. And we'll see if I can reread my writing. That's the other thing.
Again, Melissa, same thing. I'm like, what did I just say here?
Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to go for it anyway.
We are. And welcome to Mixing Up Midlife. We are back. I am Terri.
And I'm Melissa. And we are recording finally after both of us have gone different places. You've returned. We are back to watching the Golden Bachelor again, episode 4.
Episode 4. We
can't quit.
We're invested. What can we say? So invested. I am so invested now. Yeah, I will be sad if Gerry does not find love with somebody.
Well, you know, that's so funny because I'm less concerned about Gerry finding
the women.
love as one of the women.
If that's what they want.
But I want them all to find love. Well, speaking of love, though, Terri, you were in the city of love last week.
I was. Ooh la la. Good one, Melissa. I was in the city of love. It was phenomenal. It was
lovely.
It was so filled with love. It was romantic. It was lovely.
That's nice.
We walked, we ate, we drank, we walked. That is all we did. We went to one museum. It was a really small one, totally by mistake. It was so great.
You know what I think you did? And maybe this is a new trend that we should be talking about. I think you had a retirement honeymoon.
Oh, is that a thing?
Or empty nest honeymoon? I don't know. Something that, you know, you didn't go for a cultural reason. You didn't go to visit a kid that was on abroad semester or anything. You just did this on your own because now that he's retired, you have time. He can just take off and do this kind of thing.
He has time. Yeah. And I think that's the really interesting thing is everything has always been based around him, his schedule. And it's not that I haven't worked. It's just that my work wasn't as imperative to our family's survival as his. We were talking about that he was not really present a lot in our earlier years because he was really working hard. He worked long hours. He worked stressful hours. He was stressed. So I'm dating my husband again.
Yeah.
And it's really very nice.
So was this a conversation you had when you were there?
Yeah, it was.
Isn't that interesting? You live with the person, you're with them 24/7 every day, and you go on this trip and you get into deep discussions.
And I know why that is.
Okay.
And I wonder if you're having the same thing because you're not at your home either.
Right.
But it's because you don't have the daily life around you that is yours. You don't have the things that you know you need to do. And you really can just focus on how you are inside, how they are inside. You don't have to worry about anything extraneous like the bills, the paper. I mean, the bills are always there, but the papers around you, the clothes that need to be folded, things like that.
And the routine and the way the real life gets in on you. So, I mean, and I think it was great because it sounded like you weren't pressuring yourself to see everything and go to every museum and educate yourself on things. It sounds like my type of trip, walking, croissants, and just seeing the scenery.
But that's exactly all we wanted to do. And we said we have no itinerary. We knew we wanted to go to one restaurant that was recommended to us by a friend who used to live in France. His daughter is French. And he said, oh, it's a great restaurant. You'll love it. Now, the funny thing is it's an Alsatian restaurant in Paris. And Alsace-Lorraine is the capital of which is Strasbourg, which is where I spent a year in college and then a year after. So it was just funny that I was eating Alsatian food in Paris.
Now, what's the difference between Alsatian food and Parisian food?
Well, Parisian, I don't know like what the typical Parisian thing is besides like a steak frite. But Alsatian food is almost a German-based thing. So choucroute, it's, cabbage. What is that stuff? I can't even think. I'm still a little jet lagged. Mm-hmm. Sauerkraut. It's sauerkraut.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but it's not. So yeah,
German, definitely German-based. That makes sense.
Yeah, and the Alsace-Lorraine went back and forth between French and German ownership. I think from what I remember from like 500 BC or something like that. Like these two warring nations, even before they were France and Germany, they were always taking control of this one very fertile region. It's got a very interesting culture. It has its own language. It's not German and it's not French, and I don't know what it is. I hope the Alsatian language is still alive. But in any case, that's all we did. We just had the best time, and I got to use my French. So,
yay! Yeah. You've been learning online. Remember, we did a episode on that.
Yeah, I stopped with Duolingo when we left for Italy because it really didn't help. I found it a little disappointing. But I got right back into it. I was embarrassed to speak it, but I tried anyway. And a lot of times some people were like, I don't speak any English. No. And I was like, okay, let me give it a go here. And so that was fun. And I did okay. I really did okay.
Good.
The other fun thing is one of my ex-coworkers is a young woman who left about 6 weeks ago, left her job where I work and moved to Paris for language school. So she's doing a 3-month intensive. Yeah. So we met her for wine and frite, which was great.
So she's just doing this temporarily.
She's doing it temporarily. Yeah. But she was like, if not now, when? And, right? If not now, when? So we were talking, my husband and I were talking about that as well. Like, I would like to do that. And he was like, you should do that. I couldn't leave him for a month. I couldn't do that. And the dog. So if they could come with me, I would totally do that. But otherwise, I'm not leaving my husband and my dog for a month. That's not what I signed up for.
And your husband could go with you, but the dog would kind of put a wrench into it, I think.
I think it might be difficult getting her over there, but I wouldn't leave her for a month. No, I couldn't. We left her for 5 days and we were both
And how did that go?
Oh, she was great. She has her nephew or whatever.
Her nephew.
I think it's because my daughter is her sister, right?
Okay.
So I think that would be her nephew. Anyway, so Melissa, that was Paris. It was amazing. I can't wait to hear more about Cape Cod. We'll get into that the next time. But it's the Golden Bachelor.
Woohoo!
All right, episode 4. What happens?
It opens up with already these producers are trying to remind us that Kathy and Theresa have tension.
Right.
And I still think it's manufactured tension, although they're really making Kathy out to... Or maybe she's making herself out to not be such a nice person. What do you think?
I was very surprised by that, the whole argument. I don't think it was manufactured. I have thoughts on it.
I'm giving her too much credit, maybe.
I don't know. I still think she's probably an amazing person. This is what I think. I think they're two very different people who have two very different approaches to things and see things differently. And
that's kind of an interesting comment, isn't it? That she was thinking something completely different and it was interpreted in a different way. It makes you kind of think about the way you say things to other people and what you say versus what they hear.
Well, that's so true. My husband and I will do this all the time. I'll say something, he hears something totally different.
Right.
So I do find that very interesting. But I also think there's something about two different people just not seeing things the same way, and not everybody gets along. And while Theresa thought they were friends and got along, Kathy really did not seem to be too enamored of Theresa. And Theresa's not dumb. She's very innocent seeming.
She does play the innocent. You know what's interesting?
But she's not dumb. She's a financial securities person. She's not dumb.
We talk about getting the younger crowd's input on this. And I did talk to my daughter about this very recently.
Oh, what'd she say?
Well, first of all, she felt so bad for Theresa, but she also was like, the part of me, she kind of reminded me of you. Like if somebody came at you and you were just like, I'm not like that, or I would never be that way. Like how shocked she was and how she said, I wouldn't even want him to be with me if I'm not the right person. I want him to be happy. I'm like, I remind you of Theresa? I don't know.
You don't remind me of Theresa.
Thank you. But she
not that she's a bad person. She's not a bad person. It's not that at all. But you do not remind me of Theresa.
But I have had the experience. Have you ever had the experience of someone, as I said, interpreting something you said completely wrong and like thinking you were a bad person when you didn't mean to do it?
Sure. Absolutely.
Yeah, so I think we can relate to that, to the shock that you feel.
Yes.
When you're wrongfully accused of something.
Yes. So it starts out with Theresa saying, and I got the first date, which annoys Kathy immediately. And she said, and I wrote this down, Theresa can't find the off button when she's talking.
That's true, too. And I think Kathy pointed that out to her. That was before she kept saying, zip it.
Zip it. So the zip it bothered me.
I do think when Theresa was telling, because she went and tattled on Gerry.
I know, that was also like, grow up.
And I swear, if you listen to it, she was saying snip it. Snip it.
The first one, she did say snip it. Kathy said zip it.
Kathy said zip it. And when Gerry talked to Kathy about it, as he does later, he says zip it.
Yes.
So somehow it was corrected. But I'm like, when Theresa was saying, I'm like, she said zip it, not snip it.
They have this discussion. Kathy's not here for it. Theresa's like, whatever. And then they go their separate ways. By the way, Theresa's dress, stunning. Loved it.
I have to go back and look at it. Yeah.
Beautiful. I would totally wear that if I could. It seems like Kathy is a type A personality and that Theresa might not be a type A personality. And she's trying to tell Theresa how she processes things, but won't give Theresa the same opportunity to let Theresa have her own way of processing. And it was odd that Kathy was like, hear me now. But she wasn't giving Theresa that same opportunity.
Right. Teresa's like, yes, I hear you. And this is my side of it.
Right. And Kathy was like, no. Yes. So I think just sometimes people don't get along. And maybe that was the case. I did not in any scenario see any sort of connection with Kathy and Gerry in any case. And we talked about that. Before I even knew she was going home, I was like, she's going home. So back to it. What else do we hear?
Back to it. So the group date selection begins.
Right.
And in comes, now, Terri, did you know who this person was that came in?
I did.
So did I. Actually, I wasn't sure at first because she used to be a blonde.
Yeah. I wish she was still a little blonde, right? Like a dirty blonde. Wasn't she?
Definitely darker than I remember her.
Yeah.
But,
so it was Trista who was the first bachelorette. And she is still married 28 years later, I think she said.
I had 20 down, but
20.
I can't believe that was 20 years ago. So that was the first. So
Trista and Ryan.
We did watch it all the way through.
Yeah.
I watched her thing all the way through. I don't even remember the first Bachelor.
Nope.
But I remember the first Bachelorette.
Same.
That's funny.
Isn't it? And I thought she was amazing. And Ryan was, I remember Ryan. He was a fireman.
Really cute couple.
They were in Colorado. I totally remember their whole story. I think they've got like 2 or 3 kids. So it does work, I guess. And that was what Trista was saying. She gave Gerry this advice. Don't be with the person who you think you should be with the person you can't be without, or something along those lines. And I thought that was great advice. Like sometimes you just want what you want, And at this age and stage in our lives, we should have what we want.
I think it's hard for him to imagine at this point. He's only known these women for how long?
And I mean, hard to tell.
Can he not live without yet? I think he's still got some time to figure that out.
Yeah, 100%. And hopefully he does date the woman and doesn't like rush off and get married. But who knows? I mean, who knows? Okay. So the group date is Melissa's very favorite
pickleball tournament. And I'll give you all my feedback on their pickleball skills. But
I thought they
first
were pretty
we do
good.
Find out they were good, but they were not playing pickleball the way you see true pickleballers playing. They play like how I play with my friends, is that you stay in the back and you play it like mini tennis.
Right.
If they were playing real pickleball, they'd be up at the net, slamming it, which they did a few times.
Ellen was up at the net.
Ellen was up at the net.
Like,
she knew
I
what
saw
to do.
her move up. I was like, oh, Ellen. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And thank God Ellen won. But I thought this was very funny. So they had teams. I don't know how they got the teams picked, but it was Theresa and Susan were the purple picklettes. April and Faith were the pinky dinkies. Kathy and Ellen were the pinkalicious paddles. And Sandra and Nancy were bitchin' kitchen, which I thought that was funny. I thought these names were funny.
I thought these names were funny. And again, the voice from the younger generation. My daughter loved this part of it. She said it reminded her of like me and my friends playing and things like that. And I thought it went really well. But before we get into it, there's two things I need to point out.
Yes.
One being, we didn't mention that Leslie's name was not called, so she did not play in the pickleball tournament, which means she will be getting the one-on-one
date. She was very excited about that. And secondly,
the other thing I want to point out is that my lovely Sandra was the one to say, I want to dink Gerry.
I'd like to dink him. I wrote that too, Sandra. I'd like to dink him. I just love her.
How they make
Sandra.
Her sweet and spicy at the same time.
Yes. I love that we both had that as a quote.
That's right.
All right. So the other thing, and I don't know if you caught this, but when they were playing, so they, had a competition. It was elimination. So what I noticed was Kathy was rooting for the orange team. The bitchin' kitchen was Sandra and Nancy's team. So she's good friends with Nancy, but she was rooting for them against Theresa and Susan, Theresa being her nemesis, Susan being her friend, the purple picklettes. So she was actively rooting for the orange team and against her friend Susan, which I was like, all right.
Well, there's few things I want to know. A, who were those other people in the crowd?
Oh, I thought about that too. I'm like, where are these people coming from?
Who are these random people?
Right.
Secondly, did you know who Joey was?
Someone
named Joey showed up. I guess he's a previous bachelor.
Season 28. I'm like, excuse me, how many seasons? Right?
Well, I mean, maybe that got some people excited, but didn't know who he was, didn't mean anything to me. Sounds like Gerry is a pretty major pickleballer of himself.
Seems like it. And Sandra was like, I am going to impress Gerry. She had 2 artificial knees and she was missing her daughter's wedding. Let's talk about that, Melissa.
That's really impressive. Well, I mean, about the artificial knees.
I don't know how you
missed your daughter. Kind of sad about the daughter's wedding.
I could never.
I got the feeling, well, she talks about that later on. One other thing before we get into that, because she has a little conversation with Gerry about that, but when April fell, I was just like, she just fell doing nothing.
She did.
I wrote it down, and then she like whispers, oh, I fell on purpose or something. I'm like,
I was
totally
going to get a
that.
little one-on-one time with Gerry. It didn't work, though.
It did not work with poor April.
I know.
I didn't think she was all that upset.
No, April, again, we say this over and over. April is going on to big things. It would shock me.
She's moving on.
Yes. And Gerry, who clearly does not drink. Does not drink. I mean, there's no booze in that, which is fine. It's just maybe that's not, I don't know. April seems like she's a little bit more of a champagne girl to me.
And we learned a lot more about April in the
We did.
Never Have I Ever game. That comes up.
Oh, she's funny.
But anyway, before we get to that, let's just make sure we covered. I loved the slow motion run onto the court when they were all coming on. That was pretty cool. I thought they all played pretty athletically.
I thought so too. I was really impressed, actually.
Yeah. I thought they were good.
I wondered, I thought there is no way these ladies who said they've never played pickleball before didn't get a coaching session ahead of time. They had to.
Oh, maybe they did.
They
I don't
absolutely
know.
had to have. Or the editors were incredibly kind to them.
So the winner was Ellen and Kathy?
Yes. Ellen and Kathy, the Pinkalicious paddles, were the winners. And
Ellen gave them a huge smack on the lips.
She certainly did. She certainly did.
She did not shy away from that at all. Now, the other thing is the winners got to be on Pickleball Magazine or something.
Which for Ellen was a big deal.
I want to know because they had the picture taken and they showed it. Do you think it was the same photographer as fashion?
I think it was somebody who literally took something on their iPhone. These photographs are not that great, but yes, I did notice that, Melissa. I think in terms of photography because of you sometimes. So
I've trained you.
You have. What would Melissa think? Again, Theresa and Kathy have this conversation, and
this was the zip it conversation.
Right.
And it happens actually after the pickleball game. But again, with Theresa not knowing when to stop, I mean, why did she go ask for some time with Kathy? Just so she could rehash it, just so they could have controversy.
Right. Well, that's it.
Silly.
I mean, but I think that's the whole thing. If you don't have drama, you don't have drama, right? And if you don't have drama, you don't have a show. I guarantee you, the producers had to.
They were told to.
Yeah, they had to. They're like, you go talk to Kathy, make sure everything's okay, yada, yada, yada. But Gerry says there's a disturbance in this thing. And when he says there's a disturbance,
it's like his teacher hat.
Well, and you know somebody's going home. And you also know it's not going to be Theresa.
No, it's not going to be Theresa.
But I would be surprised if she sticks around to the end. I think Gerry's done with the drama.
I do too.
Of Theresa and Kathy, and one by one. All right, so.
But first, Gerry does have this one-on-one time with Sandra.
Yes.
To talk about. Oh, and the other note I have about Sandra is that she's got great arms.
She does.
Yeah. They're at some good group of athletic
ladies.
women.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I hope that younger crowd is noticing this. So what she said, he said, how could you be missing your daughter's wedding? That's so sad. And she said that her daughter actually talked to her and said, Mom, I've got my guy, now go get yours. And I thought this was definitely, her daughter must be a real low-key, it must have been a low-key elopement type wedding. Maybe. Or something.
Yeah, that's the only thing I could think of because I just...
Not a wedding. I can't imagine that happening.
I don't know. I couldn't imagine missing my daughter's wedding.
Could you imagine going to a big wedding and the mother of the bride not being there and them announcing that, sorry, she can't be here. She's
on a
filming
dating
a reality show.
No,
right
no.
And not Sandra.
All right. So I love Sandra still. Spicy Sandra. She's just giving. So I love that. Why is that first rose that Gerry gives... always a pity rose?
I said the same thing. I'm like, Gerry, I want Sandra to stay, but Gerry, you got to stop giving the rose away for no reason.
The pity rose. It's like,
except that you feel bad for someone.
You did this thing.
He gave it to Kathy because
she was crying. Yeah. I do wonder if the ladies are going to realize that he gives this pity rose and start manipulating it. Do you know what I'm saying? Whatever.
Well, there's some confusing things that I didn't really understand about this show. I thought all the roses came at the end of the show, and I didn't think you could self-eliminate yourself as well.
Well, you can
as we find out.
You can always say, I'm going home. I thought that was an interesting thing. So let's get into that. All right?
Do you want to get into that before Leslie's date?
No, let's go into Leslie's date. Let's go into Leslie's date. Next. Yeah. So Leslie has the one-on-one date, and they're going ATVing. And to me, that's terrifying.
I was thinking I would be a little terrified with that as well.
Absolutely
not what I would be wanting to do.
No. And he's like, I'm gonna go ahead of her. No, first he went ahead of her, and she's following him, and she's like, he's going really fast, and there are divots. I would be terrified. I don't like machines like that.
Right.
You can get into some serious accidents. So
Leslie looks more like she should be with her little cut off jeans and top. She looked like she should be like riding a horse or something.
Something like that.
I'm seeing that side of her where she said she didn't want the leather jacket because she was more of a hippie girl.
Yeah.
She looked very
hiking
natural
in the mountains or something like that. Exactly. So, Melissa, I'm going to say something maybe controversial, maybe not.
Okay.
So they go on the date. He picks her up. They go ATVing together on the same ATV. Then they go into a hot tub.
Of course.
And have an incredibly passionate kiss. It looked like very passionate. And there definitely seems to be sparks flying, right? He says, I can't stop looking in your beautiful blue eyes.
Sparks on his side for sure. Did you get the feeling he cut her off while she was talking and just went in for the kiss? I know.
A little bit, but is that editing or is it right? So I wonder if there will be a religious difference or if that matters. And does it matter at this age? Because she was wearing a Star of David and him being and I'm making assumptions. Him being from the Midwest.
I have no idea.
I just wonder if there would ever be religious differences. Or if it matters
at this age. It would be a conversation that would come sooner.
Yeah, and the only reason I mention it is because the Star of David necklace was so prominent in so many shots. So it obviously means something to her in some way. And that was clearly, this was all shot well before all of what's going on now. So yeah, I just thought that was interesting. And it was a question that I thought about. Does religion matter after you have kids when you're with somebody? Or does it matter? Not being particularly religious myself, it wouldn't bother me one way or the other what any religion was, as long as they weren't overly religious for me. That's all, because I'm spiritual. I'm not religious.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. I would think it will be a subject that could come up later.
Yeah.
If it is important enough for either of them.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting. And then they have this great date. And they showed the ladies back at the mansion playing Never Have I Ever. And Susan, God love her, starts the game. And they have to, instead of taking a shot, which is, normally what you do, they take ice cream. And Sandra is like, I am lactose intolerant.
And she was eating quite a bit of ice cream.
She was eating. And we love Spicy Sandra, right?
I think April might have had a little bit more than her.
April.
April was eating to everything.
She was.
And Kathy was a little bit shocked by
the
fact that maybe she wasn't quite as experienced in some things as the rest of the women.
Yeah, that was interesting as well. We don't know a lot about Kathy's background, do we? We don't know if she's a widow. We don't know if she's divorced. We don't know if she was ever even married. Does she have kids? I don't know. I don't know.
They might have said it. I don't recall.
Then they show Sandra getting sick from presumably.
They don't show her literally getting sick.
No. And there's Sandra in the toilet. No, they don't show that. They do show her laying in bed. My question was, why didn't she speak up? I'm not going to have ice cream because it makes me sick. I would totally. At this age,
yes.
Don't you so I wonder about that.
I would have said, get me some frozen yogurt or something.
It's not that, or yogurt is also dairy, but get me some vegan ice cream. Yeah.
Oat ice cream. Yeah. That's really good. I had some in your town that was so good.
And
not in your town, in our old town.
Really?
Yeah.
Where?
The place that was right near Jessup Green.
Oh, Green and Tonic?
Maybe.
Yeah, probably. Oh, yeah. For $20.
Yeah. You know what? It was worth it that hot day.
So I just thought that was interesting. Why didn't she speak up? But then we see that Nancy had a stress fracture from playing pickleball. That was shocking.
Gerry has a one-on-one with Susan. Is it Susan that he gives?
Yeah. The rose quartz too. Yes.
He gives a rose quartz to her. He doesn't give her a rose, but he gives her a rose quartz.
He gives her a rose time. Because he says she reminds him of his late wife, Toni, with her empathy and her strength. Rose quartz is also a symbol of love. So when you want to bring love into your life, you hold rose quartz. I do know that. They kiss. It didn't seem like anything particularly.
Not the way he kissed Leslie in the hot tub.
Nope, it was not.
It just bugs me that Gerry says he needs to see them show their affection. And I think that's part of the show, but I hate that they need to kind of push to him how much they think he's such a great guy just to stay.
Right.
I don't know.
I know.
Did you see when Faith talked to him too?
Yes.
Now, the comment from the younger crowd, my daughter says she thinks Faith is a pick-me kind of girl.
Really? I did not get
did you
that
notice
from Faith.
That I'm different than all the others.
I see. I wouldn't have put that as a pick-me girl, but yeah. So Faith says that she's standing back a little bit because she's not easily showing affection or not grabby for the moment. I still like Faith for him. Sorry, I do. I think it's going to be Faith. I don't think it's going to be Leslie. But okay, so right. Ellen has a comment. You know, she's really falling for Gerry. She's falling in love. And she tells him she's falling in love with him. And I thought that was a really interesting, brave thing to do, by the way, you know, to tell somebody you barely know that you're falling in love with them and that you're getting feelings and all of that. But her comment was in what are they called? The asides or the one-offs. It's hard getting older. It's hard getting older and falling in love. The hardest part is my feelings that I haven't had in so long are being ignited, and that's scary. You know, I have empathy for that. You and I have these people that we've been with for so many years.
Right.
I can imagine that has got to be terrifying. To allow
and I was imagining that. I know we both love our husbands very much, but I can't imagine that feeling anymore. I kind of feel like that was something that went out with my hormones.
Ellen was the one who had the balloon ride, and she said she's getting butterflies. So she's really feeling the feelings, but I agree with you on the hormones. I'm like, pump it up.
Could I do that?
Right.
I'm glad Ellen took her shot. She knew what she was doing.
Yeah.
She told him she's falling in love. She got a kiss for it. And it actually made Gerry remember falling in love with his wife, too. So maybe there will be a little vicarious
transfer.
Yeah, of that.
Could be.
She got him thinking.
It did get him thinking. Gerry was kissing everybody. And then we get Nancy.
Yes, and I didn't know it was going that angle. I always thought Nancy and Gerry looked good together, and I thought it was just a matter of editing that we hadn't seen them have interactions. But they went off for a little walk, which I thought was going to be a nice little one-on-one, and she just says, I think you have stronger feelings for other people here than me. Am I right? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, okay, bye.
And she's like, I'm done. And honestly, I was clapping for her because I think, first of all, she went out on her own terms.
Right. She didn't have to stand there and act sad when she didn't get the rose, which obviously she wasn't looking for.
And maybe it was also, she was not feeling it. And she was like, I'm not wasting my time. I loved that. I would love to know the details of that. But I loved that she left on her own terms. I thought having that conversation is brave. Like, listen, I don't think you're feeling me. Maybe she said, I'm not feeling you. And who knows?
And you could just see the relief on Gerry's face when she said it first.
He was like, you're not wrong. Yeah. So good for you to have that mature conversation. And I think if the younger set could learn that a little bit more and say, I'm really not feeling this, I'm out. Right. I'm not going to waste my time right now. I think it's a good lesson for the younger crowd. I was so impressed with Nancy. I just have wow written and so impressed.
And I have, hopefully she can get her leg checked out now that she's out of the house.
So then we get to the rose ceremony,
where Kathy looks completely panicked. Her face, she just looked scared. She knew it was coming.
She did. I was trying to do the math. There were 7 women on the stage, and the 8th would have been Sandra, but she was ill, so she was not there. She already had a rose. It was fine. Mm-hmm. Leslie had a rose. Right. Leslie was included in those, what would have been 8 women. Nancy Amsgrade, so there should have been 9 women and 4 roses. No, there's 9 women, 6 roses. So there should have been 3 going out. Exactly. Mm-hmm. And there's my math. Okay, so 2 women are going home. Who is going home? Ellen, she gets the first rose, which I thought was very nice. Mm-hmm. Leslie already has the rose, so we know that's
just there.
Yeah. Faith gets the second. See, I wanted to point that out. Faith got that second rose. I think we're going to see more of Faith coming up.
I think next episode is going to be all Faith.
Yep. Susan got the rose. They left Theresa to the end because, of course, who's going home, Theresa or Kathy? They're pitting this.
And of course it was Kathy.
Of course it was. Well, I mean, I wonder how Kathy is feeling about her edit, how she came off. Does she stand by it? What's her story on all of this? What does she think?
Again, I don't think she felt it either with him. I really don't.
I kind of don't either.
She said rejection is not fun.
Correct.
And then as she drives away, they show one final scowl on her face. So they really didn't give her a great edit. Like, I don't think she was making that face all the time, but they showed her making a face a lot of the time.
They made her the villain. And the one that surprised, well, not really surprised me, but surprised me, was our beloved April, who
looked beautiful and glamorous.
So gorgeous. And my note was, she is way too glamorous for Gerry.
She is. And she didn't look all that upset either.
She really didn't. She's funny. You got to follow her on Instagram. She's on TikTok. She's funny. I like April. We'll be seeing more of April. That is 100%. She's too beautiful, charismatic. She's funny. We'll be seeing more of April down the line. I would like to see her potentially as the Golden Bachelorette. What do you think about April as the Golden Bachelorette?
I could see her. If not Joan, then I could see her.
Yeah.
And I could see her more. I'm not sure Joan would like doing it, actually.
Again,
Joan's not a front page person, and April definitely is put me up there, put me in the game.
I mean, Joan seems somebody like we would be friends with. Mm-hmm. April seems like somebody I'd like to be friends with.
Right.
Because she's so amusing.
She's built for bigger things.
Yeah, she's like a big character. That's all I have. What else do you have, Melissa?
Some notes that I can't read. Next rose ceremony, we'll meet somebody.
Okay. So I think he said he has one more rose ceremony before the hometowns.
Oh, that's right. Family. That's what that scribble was.
Family.
Yeah, that'll be interesting.
So that means hometowns are in 2 episodes. Is that right?
Or I guess after the next rose ceremony. So
that's where it gets big. And usually I think they only do 4 hometowns, right? Only 4.
I don't know.
So
4 seems like a lot, actually.
It does, but I think that's,
okay.
Reasonably.
Well, these shows are usually 2 hours versus 1 hour, too.
It's a lot to cram in, but thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you to the producers, because my brain can't handle it, and my jet-lagged brain really can't handle it. I was thinking about it. If you thought of one of our friends, anybody who could be on Golden Bachelor and become a star, who would it be?
You mean our direct friends?
Yeah.
Oh, Kim.
You betcha.
Yeah. She would be great.
She would be so good. She would be amazing. Wouldn't she?
She would be.
She would be amazing. I would like to see her. I mean, not trying to say that Kim should do it, but I would, yeah, or needs to.
But
do
if
it.
you're listening,
but Kim,
remember,
you'd be
it was
awesome.
our idea.
I mean, she's kind of the whole package. She's smart.
Should we mention who Kim is on this? Since she was a previous guest.
Yeah, Kim Hamer. I think she is the person I've known the longest, but she was a previous guest. We talked about widowhood with Kim because she is a widow. Her husband died, I want to say 12 years ago.
Wow.
It's been a while.
She had young kids. So,
she did. Yeah. She had really young kids. I think Art was 42, something like that.
The only other thing I saw, I made a note of in the future because they show the upcoming and they show Gerry so upset. And I'm wondering whether at this stage, do people of our age find the game a little cringy, that it's not that fun to mess with people's emotions
because you're messing
like
with
this.
People's emotions. And whatever Gerry is, he seems like a really nice guy.
Right. And
good guys don't want to mess with people's emotions.
And I could see you being excited to be, you're going to be the bachelor. Right. You're going to, have all these women and pick, and you'll find love, and you're going to do these glamorous things. But maybe they didn't give him the heads up, or maybe he didn't really consider the fact that in the process you could really be
hurting people,
breaking someone's life, and that you might get attached to more than one person.
It's really funny. Like, I always think about reality TV. It's amusing. Sometimes it's gross and not so amusing.
Speaking of which, did you see the latest season of Love is Blind?
No, I haven't watched it. I can't watch it.
If you ever do, we'll talk about it.
Okay. Did you watch the whole season?
I did watch the whole season.
God.
And can I just tell you, the season before that was so much better. Can you have a full season of characters in a reality show where I don't really like any of them?
I think that's what happens with a lot of these shows. It's like the earnestness of the first couple of seasons before it becomes this machine in and of itself.
Right.
Real Housewives of New York, now the brand new cast. And it's not a great season. It's not outstanding, but it's like low level drama. It's not super drama. And I'm here for the not super drama.
Yeah.
And the hurt. I don't like the
hurt. To me, that is a sign that they're not really distasteful people.
For the most part, you would think. Or they haven't gotten to that point where somebody's speaking in their ear all the time in a negative way, saying, well, if you want to be on this show. Would you ever do reality TV, Melissa?
No, not if it was a emotional thing. If it was something that was like a fun version of Survivor or that Around the World one, something like that.
That would be fun.
I would do. You and I doing that.
That would be really fun to do around the world. I would love that.
Yeah. It's not called that. What's it called?
No, I can't remember. But
the Great Amazing Race. Amazing Race. Yeah.
Yeah. I would be pretty good at that. I'm pretty good at navigating places I don't know.
Yeah. And I would just be along for the ride.
No, you wouldn't. You have your own set of skills. Stop doing that. You're like, I'm just going to be here.
No, well, you got the navigation skills.
I'm pretty good at that. But I'm sure you are too, with all of your camping and hiking. And
oh, yeah. If it was out in the wilderness,
you would be great. Exactly. That's not mine. Give me a city. I can navigate a city.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
Ooh, I wonder. That could be maybe we'll start a reality show like that. Anyway, the one little extra that they showed at the end, did you stay to the end and watch April cleansing the house?
So funny. The end cards, or whatever you call them, the clips at the end, outtakes are my very favorite thing.
Yes, you have to stay to the end for it.
So April starts saging the house, and I'm like, what kind of sage is she using? Because it's creating a lot of smoke.
Didn't the smoke detector go off?
The smoke detector went off. And the last thing you hear is, I think, Susan saying, thanks, April.
It's just,
really funny. It's very cute. So Golden Bachelor, we can't quit it. And we'll see what happens on that next episode. Thank you to the people who have said they've been listening to our podcast and don't watch The Golden Bachelor. So now they still know what's going on. I appreciate
keeping
that.
You
yeah,
in the inn.
I'm glad you're listening with us and taking this ride and hearing our take on it from an over 50 perspective, because I think it's a little different than maybe some of the younger podcasts that
or the typical
recap.
Bachelor podcasts, of which there are many.
Please keep following us on our journey and listening to us. Share us with your friends. We really appreciate the shares. That's really helpful. You can find us on Instagram at Mixing Up Midlife. You can join us in our Facebook group, Mixing Up Midlife Discussion. And yes, I did just say Facebook group.
Actually, I think it's just called Mixing Up Midlife now.
Is it? All right.
Facebook group.
All right.
I just realized that.
All right.
Keep that in.
All right. And I'll just change it back to discussion. No, I'm kidding.
It's one way to do it.
Oh, God. And if you have any comments on The Golden Bachelor or anything else, leave us a voicemail on our website, mixingupmidlife.com. That is it for us this week.
Have a great week. I hope you catch up on your sleep, Terri.
Thank you, because I'm punchy as anything right now. See you next week. Bye.
Bye. And gentlemen, and then the men go marching out into the front.
Is that
Broadway show?
I was going to
Pippin.
say, what is that, Pippin?
That's from Pippin. Yeah. Biggest nerd ever.
You are. You're a good theater nerd. I was thinking about Marie's Crisis and how you knew every song in there. It was great.
Oh, yeah.
That was great.
That was fun.
All right. I'm so tired. I got to go to bed.